this is the Prism.K12 website. The big thing for tonight is that you can find under what's Prism.K12, identify. And this artwork right here is an example of how a teacher at the Inspired Teaching School here in DC used the strategy of identify to brainstorm a lesson in her classroom. So our definition of identify is to closely examine and describe details. And then if you're curious and you want to click through and use any of these as resources, that's in the classroom section. So this describes what went into the lesson that got to this artwork. So this is sort of the big idea for the lesson that got to this artwork. That's the shining example. Does anyone want to share anything about the painting?
I didn't know a lot about it.
Oh, great.
But I've never seen it before. But I loved it. I loved the details. I loved looking at it.
I talk a lot in the galleries with visitors about how it's actually multiple types of paintings all combined in one. That like down here on the table, you have a still life. And like all around here, you have a genre painting. And back here, you have a landscape going on. And so I feel like that's one of those great things is that it's so many different types of art in one composition. Harvard's Project Zero is sort of a think tank in art education and well, in education in general, but they've done a lot of research and created a lot of resources for making thinking visible. And so they have a number of routines that they call visible thinking routines. And so I was going to do with you all tonight a routine called Step Inside, Perceive, Know, Care About. This routine is really good at getting students to empathize, for one, to use another one of the Prism.K12 strategies, but also to really examine details in an artwork. So it's based on these 3 core questions. My plan with you all tonight was to have you take a piece of paper, just a regular old piece of paper, and fold it into thirds. You can do this with a piece of paper in the classroom, or you could do it with different colored sticky notes in the classroom. It's up to you. And then label at the top each section. One section will be perceive. One section will either be believe or know. And then the last section is care about. And so you would take a few minutes to look at the painting, to talk about the painting, to really examine the details, identify details, and discuss how those details help you understand the painting as a whole. Then you would ask each student to imagine that they are one of the people in the painting. So we imagine that we're taking on the persona of one of the people in the painting. And first, we take a few minutes to think about what that person perceives. And what I mean by that is you could take a senses walk. So what does that person see? What does that person smell? What does that person taste? So from that conversation about what they perceive, you'll then go into and spend a few moments on what that character then either believes or knows. It's kind of the same thing. And then from there, you dive into then what that person cares about, asking them to back it up with details that they see in the painting. So for example, this woman back here might care about these 2 guys minding their own business. We were going to the Who's Who section next. And in the Who's Who section, you can actually learn about your character, real life stuff. So there's a little bit more from about some characters than about others, helping you to understand that character even better. if you had time and you were doing this as a lesson in class, you could send your students out in the world to do research on that character. We were then going to take a deeper dive into the sort of contextual history around what was going on for these people. So in order to understand the people, you need to understand what was going on in the world around them at the time. And so this section called Le Weekend talks a little bit about how, you know, this painting was made during the Industrial Revolution in France, and that people didn't have weekends off before the Industrial Revolution. And so, you know, this painting is monumental because it shows people relaxing and enjoying their time off. So you've done some historical research, you've done your personal looking and gleaning from the painting, and you've done a little research on each one of the characters in the painting. So from all of that information that you've then gathered, you were going to tweet from your person's perspective. So you would consider everything that you've learned about the person, the historical context, and the experience that you had imagining and looking around in the painting and taking your census walk, and you would write in 140 characters or less a short tweet from that person's perspective. Then I was going to throw in the ELA wrench of having to tweet in one of the 4 writing styles. It was going to either need to be an expository tweet, a descriptive tweet, a narrative tweet, or a persuasive tweet.